DDG episode 90. There's not an 8 in front of that number anymore. That's hard to say. 90.
It's an impressive number. The only problem is we're too close to 100 and people are going to expect us to do something fancy, but we're two humble boys from the Midwest. We're not going to really do anything fancy for 100.
I'll tell you what, we'll go live for 100 and
time?
we'll release it on Thursday at 6 a.m.
Okay, yeah. We'll somehow
maybe
do that.
Maybe 5:59 a.m. So.
No, we'll just do the Twitch stream at the time we say we're going to do it instead of being like 10 minutes over, which is usually my fault.
Yeah. All right, we are Digital Days Gaming. We have done 89 consecutive weeks, and that's how you get to 90 episodes. We release on Thursdays at 6 a.m. on podcast services of choice. We are live on Twitch Tuesdays at around 5-ish, usually 5:15, 5:30 Eastern Time, twitch.tv/Digital Days Gaming. And that is, for the most part, it. There's a whole bunch of cool stuff in the show notes you can click on, links to the website, Facebook, any of those networks. Discord is all in there in the show notes. We have a Teesprings account if you want to buy some t-shirts. I don't have any like tank tops or cutoffs yet for the heat wave that some of these places are getting. Maybe we'll get one of those like cooling shirts that you like you rinse off and it's like with our logo on it so that people can stay cool all the time. I don't know.
That's 90s as fuck.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It is hot here in Michigan this week right now. It's supposed to cool off in a couple days. So. But yeah, so teesprings.com, Digital Days Gaming. You can use Twitch subscriptions, whether it's through Amazon Prime or if you just choose to use a subscription out of your own pocket. That's super helpful. We got a Patreon. All the links are in the show notes. And we're going to jump right into the news. We got a few things to talk about. Yeah,
so we got some light news to start with, but then we'll get to the heavy hitter at the end. But Ubisoft announced Tom Clancy's, is it Cross-Defiant or X-Defiant?
X-Defiant.
Horrible name.
Or at least they're calling it X-Defiant, yeah.
It is a first-person shooter. Looks like it's heavily inspired by like Counter-Strike, Overwatch, Valorant, probably a little closer to Valorant. It takes place in the Tom Clancy universe. It looks like it's borrowing characters kind of from The Division, Ghost Recon, and Splinter Cell. That's why I thought it was Cross instead of X, but...
Yeah, I think it's more or less that they're doing things, like I think the gist of it, I feel like the little bit that I saw on Twitter yesterday was people's talking about it being a bad name, and then trying to justify the name is that it's kind of being defiant of the Tom Clancy rules, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like you can only get away with this because Tom Clancy's dead.
Yeah,
it feels like that's what this is.
So I mean, obviously, like the weapons. Like the weapons are always been like tacticalness and they've been realistic, and they focused on that on the trailer a little bit of like these are real guns with real attachments, and obviously there'll be skins and stuff. It's I know you'll get to it. It's a free to play 6v6 competitive style shooter, but I think that it's essentially the first 30-second pitch was Tom Clancy shooter game meets a punk rock style.
Yeah.
So
it looks kind of like gameplay-wise, it looks fine. It looks like a competent first-person shooter. Ubisoft has done this before. But it also just, messaging-wise, it just seems like kind of a mess of like what exactly its identity is going to be. I almost prefer this if it was its own thing as opposed to writing like Tom Clancy's previous franchises.
Correct.
With Ubisoft.
Yeah, and there's definitely a crowd that they're going after, and they're going after the... Like you mentioned, the Division, the Ghost Recon, Splinter Cell crowd, like that's who they're going after. My first initial concern is really the only competent first-person shooter that Ubisoft has released has been Rainbow Six. Mm-hmm. Shooting in the Division is third person, and Ghost Recon is third person. It's never felt. I guess I would never say it's ever felt bad, but it's never felt good. Yeah. So it's always kind of been in between. So that does concern me a little bit. And it's Ubisoft San Francisco. So this is like the team that made South Park, I believe.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
it's not.
It's hard with Ubisoft to know who's
not,
who.
Yeah. It's not massive. It's not Rainbow Six team. Like so, I'm sure that to your point, like you just said, it's hard with Ubisoft. Like it wouldn't be. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody that was like second or third in command of Rainbow Six gameplay has been transferred to the San Francisco studio to work on this game. It's something to that extent. But there are, some of the bullet points that you have in here, there's some PC playtesting going on early August, I believe. the release date is unknown. The only thing that I like about this so far is like, okay, it appears that Ubisoft has their foundation of what they are hoping to achieve with this, and then they will, in classic Ubisoft fashion, look at players' data and feedback and maybe start adjusting and molding this before it comes out, which I think is a great tool in comparison to Hyperscape that kind of just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is when do we get the message that Hyperscape is scrapped at this point? Because I don't see them being able to support multiple free-to-play first-person shooters.
Right, and this is not Heartland.
No, yeah,
So
and there's another one coming.
Yeah, so like,
I don't see them supporting 3.
This isn't the Tom Clancy's The Division Heartland. So that's, which is supposed to be coming, in, like, let's say it comes in the next 12 or 18 months. You're gonna have a publisher with 3, to your point, with Hyperscape. Sorry, whichever one it is, because I don't know it name because it's not relevant. If it hangs out, like, you got 3 free to play games going on while you have like still stuff going on with the Division 2 as a games as a service. You still have For Honor going. You still have Rainbow Six going. Like, there's a lot. So. And obviously Ubisoft has the studios to support it, but I mean, this is not. I mean, I guess the surprise, like, this should have been a Ubisoft Forward. Like, what they showed yesterday should have just been at the end of the Forward.
Yeah, they, especially the way they just kind of shadow dropped. Like, I think it was like 24-hour notice.
It showed up like Sunday. I got somebody tweeted at me. Billy tweeted at me Sunday about what I thought about it. It was an IGN tweet, or it was Ubisoft tweeting it, and then within that thread, that like it was like a tweet of Ubisoft like teasing it, and then within that thread, IGN like quote tweeted and said, "Hey, we got exclusive time with it," and they showed like 10 seconds of footage, right after the teaser trailer or the tease image, and I'm like, what? Like,
it's a weird way, but I wonder if that was just sort of the thing where people got really excited within a couple seconds and were like, Splinter Cell, Splinter Cell, Splinter Cell, and then it was just like, okay, we need to just let IGN.
I saw it. Like, when I saw, like, as dumb as it sounds, like when I saw the logo, the white background, and like the bright, I don't know what else to call it, but like the bright yellow star that kind of flashed behind the Tom Clancy like figurine. I'm like, this is weird. Like, it didn't have the militarization look to it that they, like, the Division is a dark style game, like, it's gray and orange and green, like, and this was like bright and vibrant, so it was already something that was like, okay, like, I'm okay with it. Like, I mean, I'll definitely check it out. I don't know if it's going to have any legs at all. Like, I mean, and that's really hard to tell. I mean, I guess at the same time, I would, 5 years ago, I would look at Fortnite and be like, oh, that's going to fail. So. Yeah,
well, yeah, especially the Fortnite's course to get where it was. But yeah, there's obviously always a chance for like a free-to-play game to catch fire. Ubisoft does have a track record of supporting things through hard times, though they're now hitting a point where they're shifting enough that if this doesn't hit, I mean, like, Hyperscape didn't really hit, so I think they're going to quietly get rid of that. So
I think what hurt Hyperscape was one platform too.
Yeah, and it was a very slow, like, rollout for that, or at least it felt like it, even though they kind of just. And
that's a battle royale, and this is not. Like, I had a conversation with somebody on Twitter. This is 6v6. This is not battle royale. It's probably going to be a little bit. I'm sure there'll be a couple game modes, but I'm sure it'll be objective based for the most part. And then there was a couple conversations in our Facebook group about like microtransactions, and I don't want to have to pay for skills and abilities. And I think similar to how the Division handled it, I don't know how Hyperscape has handled their microtransactions, but I could see you like buying the season passes or the the whatever content drops that they're doing, and that getting you access to, I guess I'll just call them, like, because they call them this in Rainbow Six, like, operators. So you get access to the operators, but I could also see a way to unlock the operators with in-game currency. So.
Yeah, and because it's being crossed over with all the Tom Clancy games, pre-order the latest Tom Clancy game, and then you unlock that character.
Complete a task in the Division 2, get a jacket in X Defiant.
Yeah, exactly. Just like, hey, you can only get this hero or whatever they're going to call them, this operator, by pre-ordering another game. So there's definitely ways that they could take advantage of it or use this as a tool set for just promoting other games, whether that works out for them. Because, like, Valorant's popular, but Valorant's popularity has shifted.
Hardcore competitive. Like,
yes.
Like, people get pissed if something bad happens to them.
Like, it had... Valorant had, like, the hopes of, like, mass appeal when it first came out, and they did the really smart thing with the Twitch streamers. But then very soon after that launch, it was like, no, this is only for the hardcore, and its popularity dipped a little bit because they only had a hardcore, like, audience for that.
And it's PC only, and it doesn't support controller. Like, those are all things. Like, those are things that tend to, like, that kind of pushed me away from it. I mean...
Yeah.
You and I have talked about all the time. You're like, hey, that might be a game for you to really dig into mouse and keyboard. But, you know, like and I just don't know if I have the patience right now to try to dig into a mouse and keyboard game. So
yeah, and it's they're definitely like going wide with this. Like, it's coming to every single platform except the Switch. Though by the time this comes out, maybe we'll actually have the Switch Pro going for it, and it will be on every platform. But yeah, I mean, I'll give Ubisoft a shot. Like, I kind of give them a shot with every game. Sometimes they're impressive, other times it's a little disappointing. But a free-to-play game isn't too harmful. I just kind of wish they would just come out and just say, like, we have absolutely no plans for Splinter Cell over the next couple years, just to get it out of the way, because it's at a certain point, it just comes across as, like, bad PR that they just kind of ignore this franchise or just bring... Sam Fisher or Splinter Cell back in, like, the ways that just frustrate people, like, you know, including Splinter Cell in this, or that mobile game where Sam Fisher is just like an unlockable character in the mobile game, or putting him in which Ghost Recon game was it that he was in?
The Breakpoint.
He
just kind of showed up in Breakpoint for something
for like an event. So I think Ubisoft just kind of has to come out and be like, we absolutely have no plans for Splinter Cell as a standalone game, just to kind of kill the hype a little bit every time they're making an announcement, or at least to set expectations. But let's move on to the next story. I had to include this story because it's Dave and mine's favorite thing. It's numbers. I don't know why this has turned into our favorite thing, because it's kind of scary.
Because it happens every other week.
Yeah. It's also kind of scary how often stuff gets acquired.
Yeah, it's scary how often stuff gets acquired, yes.
Yeah. So Tencent has acquired Sumo Digital for $1.3 billion. I know Dave, when he hears Sumo Digital for $1.3 billion, he's probably like, what? Sumo Digital for $1.3 billion? But
I didn't know how much they really did until now.
They have
you forget.
Yeah, they have 10 to 15 studios. I forget what the exact count is, but they have several studios, which kind of accounts for that. Their last game, obviously, was Sackboy's Big Adventure. They also did Crackdown 3, and Little Big Planet 3. So they kind of are like a mercenary studio, I would equate them to, of just like they can pick up the ball for established franchises and deliver, like, you know, competent games. So Crackdown 3 was kind of bad. But, like, Sackboy's Big Adventure, pretty good. Little Big Planet 3.
Yeah. As soon as it goes on sale digitally, I'm buying it. I only have a digital PS5.
Yeah. So Sumo Digital is a very competent studio, and I didn't know that they had 10 plus studios under them. I knew they had a few.
I honestly thought it was just like the stuff I remember them from is just the Sackboy stuff and Little Big Planet stuff, and I didn't realize that. And I guess we'd have to dig into the other studios and see what games they did, and I probably would be surprised. I'm sure it's a lot of PC stuff too.
Yeah, PC and mobile stuff for some of their non-Sumo named studios, but they have a lot of mobile stuff, which makes sense for Tencent. Tencent's just trying to get whatever they can in the games industry. Tencent, I believe, is up to 30 studios now, as in, like, they fully own or they have a, like, good stake
Minority stake, yeah.
Yeah,
majority stake, I'm sorry.
They definitely are continuing to go, and this deal isn't going to change anything for Sumo. It just kind of gives them financial security. They're going to continue to have their CEOs, and Tencent and Sumo basically confirm that, like, they are still going to be working with third-party people. I'm sure we'll get an original Sumo game now that they have this financial security, but they have so many studios specifically formed to be like a mercenary studio when people need them. Like, Sumo is basically a support studio for PlayStation, and I would imagine Tencent made this acquisition because that is a huge part of Sumo Digital's business.
And like we've said about Tencent since, you know, for months now, they don't appear to be like this, like, owner that messes with the stuff. Like they're just there and they're kind of just the money. And I'm sure that they have some leverage, but they're not like, we're not hearing about them like shutting, they buy something and shut a bunch of stuff down or completely change the direction or change all the studios to mobile studios making free to play games that are gotchas. Like they haven't done anything that I can see like that yet. I mean, or people going, oh, Tencent owns us now, we're screwed.
Yeah, we haven't noticed anything yet. This could be something that could be scary in a couple years. It could like reveal itself at the last second. It could be that meme of Vince McMahon taking off the hood and being like, it was me all along sort of scenario for this. But as of right now, Tencent acquiring them isn't necessarily a bad thing short term. Long term, we'll see what happens. I think all the monopolies happening could have long-term negative effects, kind of like how in the movie industry there's only like 3 or 4 studios that control everything, and we're kind of getting to that point in games where it's like Sony, Microsoft, and Tencent own a huge majority of the games business, and you have Activision and EA kind of under that, and then Nintendo with their secret studios that we don't really even know the name of, but we know they exist. So long-term effects, this definitely will have an issue, potentially. But short-term, it just shows that there's money in the business, and it's adding security to to a very unstable business that is the video game business. So just another one acquired. So if you're keeping count at home of who's with who now, it's getting like a tighter and tighter list. We're probably like a year away from just like straight up indie studios being acquired, like Sony just being like, oh, we got to buy Young Horses. We got to get that next, that next
Do you
game.
ever see, I guess now that you kind of brought it up, I've been thinking about it now that you've been talking, do you see Tencent trying to make like a cloud app for stuff that they own?
They are. They've been trying to do that in China. I believe they have one in China.
Because do you see them possibly trying to be build this library of competition to something like the evolving Game Pass or PS Now?
That is something they're definitely doing in China. Whether they expand that, like out of China is kind of just up to where the market goes. Like right now, Microsoft is probably paying a heavy premium to get games over to Game Pass, which will be beneficial to a company like Tencent, who owns now a ton of studios and games. But in a couple years, once Game Pass starts to plateau, that's when someone like Tencent could be like, hey, you need competition. We have all these studios. Here's Tencent's streaming service outside of China. So I can see them doing that in probably like 3 to 5 years. But right now, everyone should just take advantage of Microsoft in terms of
No. I mean, I just think that, I feel like the next 5 to 6 to 9 years, like we're not going to buy a PlayStation or an Xbox or a box. We're going to access like a Steam app or a PS app or an Xbox app.
That is definitely going to be
and now it's probably going to be a Tencent app. I don't think it'll be called Tencent, but they'll figure something out to call it. It'll be Ouya 2.0. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be something. They'll buy the Atari name, and then it'll be the Atari VCS online. But I think that's definitely what, like, when you see Embracer, like, buying studios, I feel like they're acquiring these studios because they're less like, Microsoft is in this, this licensing business right now, and Amazon is dabbling its toes in it, and Google was at a certain point. So there's money to be made just licensing out.
I mean, unfortunately, like not unfortunately, but like whether you like it or don't like it, from like a TV model, like Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon, like they're showing that. Disney and Marvel are a different animal, but the amount of money that Black Widow generated on opening weekend just through the premium $30 subscription thing that they charged for it, like, showed that, like, that's the thing. Like, people want to consume this media at home and the easiest way possible, and removing the boxes and the consoles, removing consoles from the equation, or doing something like we're actually about to talk about right now, I think is super interesting.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, you see it kind of in the movie industry right now. For a while, people were like, oh, when is Sony going to come out their streaming service? Because they're the only big studio that doesn't have it. And they had Crackle, which they sold to, like, because it just didn't take off, because they saw that there's a shit ton of money if you just get the big companies in a bidding war for your licensed stuff. And I think that's what like a Tencent sees right now. That's what an Embracer sees, and that's what probably EA and Activision see as well. Of just like, hey, eventually, Game Pass might not work, or eventually Sony's going to get into the actually taking PS Now serious business. So there's money to be made now.
Which it looks like they kind of are. They're like putting their toe in the water with some of the games that they're getting. So it's definitely interesting. They bring it up in the chat, like Bad76, PS View is gone. Yeah, it's gone. It's dead. But Sony as a company, as a corporation, got a ton of information and a ton of data from what works and what doesn't work from that system.
Yeah. So I think we're definitely going to see more acquisitions now, just so they can package that up to one of the major streamers.
Well, there's rumors. I didn't get a chance to read any of them last week because every time I'd see them, my schedule would be out of whack. But and obviously it didn't get a ton of fuel or anything to it. But the Netflix PlayStation kind of merger thing sounds super interesting. And I don't know. I haven't read or known anything other than just seeing some stuff on it. But that would be really interesting and weird. I think.
So Netflix announced a couple weeks ago that they are going to add game streaming to their services, and they were looking into partnerships. There was a data mine of their database that shows that Ghost of Tsushima was listed in their database. No one knows exactly what that could mean. We do know there's a
could
Ghost
have been
of
a
Tsushima.
television show, right?
Yeah, because we know there's a Ghost of Tsushima movie coming from the John Wick director, but people kind of tied that because I think there's another PlayStation property in that database that doesn't have a movie or show announced. So there is rumors going around that because Netflix says we're going to add games to our current subscriptions without adjusting the price, means that they could reach out to Sony of just hey, we know you have PlayStation Now.
Do you know how much money Netflix would have to give Sony? I don't even want to think about what that would cost.
There's also a lot of infrastructure stuff that Netflix would have to figure out, which is why we haven't seen Game Pass on TVs yet, is because it's not every TV's Bluetooth compatible.
Correct.
So Netflix, if they roll this out, I can see them with a small partnership with Sony. I mean, not small as in how much money they would have to pay Sony, but as in small
who could buy who? Could
neither.
Netflix buy Sony? Yeah, neither. Yeah, they're both kind of on the same plateau, right?
Yeah, because Netflix bleeds money a lot. They're one of those businesses.
Sony makes a ton but spends a ton.
Yeah, exactly. Sony makes enough to run itself and some profit, but not enough to buy a Netflix. They're both billion-dollar businesses. But Netflix does have enough money that if they want to throw I don't know, I'll just throw a random number out there, $1 billion at Sony to bring some exclusives to their Netflix gaming section, Sony would be crazy to balk at that offer and say no, because then they can turn that $1 billion into another acquisition down the line and then continue to charge Netflix more money in the future to do it. But yeah, that was the thing. It's not necessarily a merger, but the games popped up in their database, but it's still unknown how exactly Netflix plans to deliver on any of this sort of thing. They dabbled in games before. I mean, Bandersnatch is basically an FMV game. They brought the Minecraft Telltale games over to Netflix at one point.
Couldn't you do the Netflix game mail service or was that, didn't they have a gaming division in Netflix at one point in time?
For a very brief time, but I don't know if there'd be money necessarily in that.
Physical media,
yeah. But if they want to partner with the Until Dawn studio, which I'm forgetting the name of, those games would easily transition over to a Netflix service because you can just point and click the adventure or the dialogue options. So there's a lot they could do there with that in the future. But let's move on to the big story. Valve announced the Steam Deck, which is basically a portable PC that's running Steam OS. So this thing starts at $399 for a 64 gig, basically flash memory hard drive, and then it goes up to $549 for a 256 gig NVMe unit, and then there's a 512 gig one as well. So this thing has the internals. I don't want to get too like in the specs, but basically we're looking at somewhere between a PS4 and an Xbox Series S, like somewhere in that range.
A PS4 Pro?
PS4 Pro-ish, kind of.
Okay.
The reason I say Series X is because it's basically using the Series S.
Series S.
S, yeah, S.
Yeah.
It's using the Series S technology, but just kind of lessened down to like a PS4 scale. So it's kind of in there and in that range. It has a like 7-inch 720p LCD screen. So again, that's why they don't need a ton of tech.
Yeah, totally fine. It's the same size as the Switch screen.
Yeah. And it has an expandable SD card slot that you can load other operating systems in. So you can run Windows if you purchase a Windows license.
Which could, in theory, mean you could play Game Pass games.
Yep, Epic Store. I think Epic already said, like, yeah, if you run Windows, you can run it on this. So 2 to 8 hour battery life, which is similar to what we got when the Switch first launched. That's all dependent on if your game's running 30 frames or 60 frames, or if it's running on medium to high. The hardware says it can run most AAA games at medium to high settings, which
you really wouldn't notice a difference on a 7-inch screen. So.
Yeah, exactly. A 720p 7-inch screen. You're not going to notice too much of a difference with that. There will be a dock sold separately, no price for the dock, but it's going USB-C out, so I don't even necessarily think you need a dock. You just need the USB-C cable.
Unless the dock does something to help improve performance.
Yeah, unless it does something
to a TV.
Like
that.
Yeah.
Because the Switch dock does that. Slightly.
Very, very
slightly. Yeah.
The only thing is it is running SteamOS. SteamOS is Linux-based, so not every game is compatible as of right now. Valve does have a software, it's Proton, that basically translates the games from PC to Linux, Windows to Linux, but its compatibility is roughly 10 to 20% of the Steam library as of today, which I Googled it. It's like 7,000 games, so still a good chunk.
Significant number, but
as of today, and this isn't coming out until December. It won't run games like Destiny, Apex, or PUBG as of today because the anti-cheat software those games use don't run on SteamOS, though Valve has said that they are going to work with those anti-cheat softwares to get them compatible with SteamOS and the Proton software. But that is a lot of stuff I just threw out. Dave, just thoughts on this?
I think someone like you, like as an indie guy, like this has got your name written all over it. Like you I could totally see you downloading a game, a small indie title game, 15 gig, 20 gig game, and taking this to and from work. Like I could totally see you doing something like this. I feel like, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this patchwork gaming PC that I currently have is better than that Switch, than that Steam Deck, or it's slightly better. Like if that's a 7, mine's a 7.5.
Yeah, potentially. I would have to look at your stuff just a little bit more.
Yeah.
But this is using newer tech.
Correct.
But you're using more powerful older tech, but just slightly. So it's like give and take a couple things.
I do think it's super, super fascinating and intriguing to tell somebody like, hey, you want to get into the PC gaming, buy this device for $400, which is essentially the cost of a console. And you can plug it in your TV. Yeah, you can plug it into your TV. If you already own a PlayStation or an Xbox, your controller will just connect. And you can plug it into your TV and you can play. So if there's games that are PC only that interest you, and I haven't heard anything about any kind of LAN adapter. If the dock has a LAN adapter, I think that'd be a huge deal. I think in terms of, because I feel like if you try to build a PC, like a very low spec PC today, to do something similar to that, you're spending more than $400.
Oh, for sure.
So you're spending more than $700 probably.
Yeah,
because then you got to think about exactly. Yeah, you got to think about like a monitor, and then like a decent monitor versus like most people already have a television, like obviously, or and then it's they tried to do this years ago with what was that called, like the Steam box?
Steam machines.
Yeah, and they essentially were trying to build a PC as a console, and now they just decided, hey, you know what? Let's make a portable PC, which is essentially what that is. That has the ability to like let's just make a Switch that plays Steam, like, and that's what they did. And based on the pre-orders and the demand, so far they've hit it out of the park. And version 2.0 in 12 months will just be even better.
Yeah, and it's definitely, they are being really aggressive with this price. I mean, they announced this the day the OLED pre-orders went up, to where if like you were thinking of getting an OLED Switch and you already had a Switch, for $50 more, you're opening yourself up to a whole other library of games.
And the only thing that you possibly are cutting yourself off from is Mario, Zelda, Donkey Kong, etc., like the first-party stuff. But any of those other independent games, you almost always hear PC, PlayStation, PC, Xbox, which is the same now. And Switch PC, like in terms of like a new indie title. It's I can't think of, unless it's got a big publisher backing behind it, I can't think of somebody that's like, hey, we're making a brand new game, like Death's Door that just came out this week. Like, we're making a brand new game and we're doing PlayStation, PC, Xbox, Switch, Wii. Like they're not financially able to do that now. So I think that, this is super, super interesting and super smart and aggressive on Valve's part.
Yeah, and speaking of like indie games, you often see indie games coming to PC first because it's more profitable on
early
PC.
access. Like all that,
The only thing that's going to stop this is that the Linux, the Steam OS, and they are going to have to work over the next couple months to get. Yeah,
because as soon as somebody gets their hands on this thing, they're breaking that shit. Somebody's gonna jailbreak the hell out of that.
Well, but they're open to it. Like they're just load a new operating system on an SD card, and then you can swap between them.
And they're not using they're not using crazy peripheral memory sticks. Like they're not trying to reinvent the wheel or try to do anything. They're just taking. They probably assigned an engineer to this. Like, hey. They gave them a Switch and they said, make Steam work on it and tell us what you need. Yeah.
See how small you can get this. Or they probably gave them a screen size to work from. Just get this to work 720p. I saw a lot of people were a little disappointed about it being 720p screen because the OLED is out. But it's on a 7-inch screen. Like, I know most phones are running like way higher resolutions, but it at least gets them the ability to...
My phone costs more than that.
Yeah. But it at least gets them in the ballpark where they can run a game at 60 frames per second on like a high setting without like...
And the dock will be a big deal. But honestly, if you're somebody that's enamored with frame rate and resolution and
this isn't for you anyways.
That's not for you.
Yeah.
And then the games, like you talked about, like the Destiny and the Apex, those are always connected. Like, people don't really want to play those games. They already get annoyed playing those games over a Wi-Fi connection as it is. Like, and now you want to connect to, like, you want to be, like, I don't know, at McDonald's playing Apex or something. No, like, you don't want to do that. Though, you can, but it's not a good experience. Like,
though, if it wants to be successful, like Destiny, Apex, and PUBG are in the top 10 of Steam.
Yes. So I agree it has to run on there, but those are going to be for people. I feel like that if anybody that's already been playing those games is sitting in front of their desk or taking their PC and hooked it up to their 60-inch TV and they're laying on their couch playing it already.
Yeah, that would only translate to like the most hardcore people that would want to play those games. But everything's going to hinge on the Steam OS compatibility for games, just because, like, 7,000 games does seem like a lot, but Steam covers decades of games. Yeah. So compatibility would be important. But if this is successful enough, it will actually finally force developers to develop for Linux, develop for Steam OS. Because right now, they just have to develop for Windows, and you can sell on Steam.
And then it makes you wonder too, though, like how is licensing and DRM going to work? Like,
it's just Steam. It's just Steam. So you're good there,
right? But I'm saying I'm not connected. I'm driving, or I'm a passenger in a car. Like, and I downloaded Hades.
Yeah.
Like, how often do I have to refresh my license?
So Steam does have an offline mode currently.
Okay.
So you have to check in.
So how often do you have to get on? Yeah. Okay.
I think it's every couple days or so.
Okay.
So Steam does have an offline mode that you can work with. I'm sure someone could correct me if I'm wrong on that, but they do have an offline mode. But you have to sign into the offline mode. You have to be online and then say, put me offline.
Right.
You can't just permanently leave it in offline mode. So that shouldn't be too much of an issue. They might even want to stretch out that offline mode in terms of
7 days, 10 days, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and then work that way, and just have it just work that way. But yeah, like there's a huge market for this potentially if they can get it to work and get that compatibility there. I was looking at it because I was like, I'm thinking about like if they announce a Switch Pro, I'll buy a Switch Pro. But now I'm looking at it and I'm just like, oh, maybe I'll just get this. I'll deal with 720p on a screen because I don't really give a shit. I'm already blind, so I don't really need like a crazy screen on my portable device. But I'm super intrigued by this. I imagine that you were intrigued by this a little bit.
Oh yeah.
But then thinking about it, like most of the indie games, you probably wouldn't be too into.
I'm trying to get better with it, but I mean, it's like but I don't. If I'm going somewhere, I'm usually driving. It is interesting because I think it's super cool, or like I said, like super interesting for somebody that maybe travels a lot. There's a guy that I play games with, Tim. He works on airport maintenance, like on the physical airports, or so he's like 1 week he's in Minnesota and another week Reef is the one that does airport, but and then another guy, Tim, he works on ATMs, and like he's like, yeah, I can get a call tomorrow and I got to drive to Oklahoma. I'm like, oh, where do you live? He's like, I live in like middle of Minnesota. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I got to drive down there and work on it for like a day and then I'm done. And I was like, so somebody like throw that in his bag, know that he can, with a DualShock or an Xbox controller, and know that he can get to a hotel to plug it in, and he's got his Steam library. Like that's a huge deal because like I can't just take my gaming PC with me somewhere if I'm going to my mom and dad's house for like the weekend.
Yeah, that would be a headache. So this was going to be out. I think first wave's already sold out. Will be out in December, and then wave 2 or 3 are like February, March. Scalpers are already going crazy on this, even though Steam thought they had a solution for that, which is you couldn't have a new Steam account and do this. You had to have a Steam account period, and then you had to put $5 down. Doesn't matter. Scalpers are going to scalp.
Yeah.
So hopefully they can figure out a way to do this. It's just kind of crazy that like, because of the pandemic, we're in a chip shortage. We're shortages just in general for tech, and
Valve's like, here's a new device.
Yeah, and then Nintendo's in the same boat of being like, here's a newish device around the same time. So hopefully Valve has a decent stock for this. But if you can only buy it through Valve, it's really not that big a deal. Like, I don't see you buying this at a Target or a Best Buy for at least a year or two.
Yeah, I definitely don't see like, and I'm sure that they're gonna just essentially. I mean, that's why the pre-orders are so far in advance. Obviously, they're just gonna probably make what's been pre-ordered, and then they might have some. It'll just probably be a slowly available thing, like, oh, we have new orders on January 1st, and you'll get them by March 1st or something.
Exactly,
like, I could see something like that. So. But it's super cool, and it kind of ties into like one of our questions a little bit as well, of like, okay, so within the last month we've got a Switch OLED announced, and now the Steam Deck, which by the way, like when I googled it, the first thing that showed up was Stream Deck.
Yeah, and Stream Deck announced a new Stream Deck that day, or Elgato announced a new Stream Deck, which is hilarious.
So it was crazy. And I'll just jump to one of the questions. Like today is the last day for Vita new releases. So it's like on the day or the month that Vita's officially, or not officially dead, but not seeing any more new hardware or new software. I'm sorry, 2 new hardware things are being announced, and pre-orders for that hardware are just flying off the shelves.
Yeah, it's.
So is the Vita too early?
No, the Vita was totally too early. And again, questions from BT Game Night. But like the Vita definitely, I put out like a joking tweet last week where I'm just like, PlayStation bosses from 2011 are like, now you guys want a powerful handheld?
Yeah.
Like, they were just too early with it, Like the Switch is now just adding an OLED screen to the Switch. Right. And Vita launched with an OLED screen.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, looking back, if you ask me, Vita's biggest failure, other than marketing and, Vita's biggest hardware failure, in my opinion, is the lack of 2 triggers on each side.
Yeah, but I forgot what I was listening to where they mentioned that, like, when the Sony gave up on the Vita is when it was hacked. Like, soon as people were able to, like, hack the Vita, then Sony was just like, all right, we're done with this. But Yeah, the Vita was just ahead of its time. Like, I'm probably going to load up the Vita later today. Hopefully my battery still charges, because it's been like a year since I turned it on. And I'm hoping to just pick up some PS1 games and just mess around with the Vita just a little bit, though that store is probably terrible. That's probably, hopefully they didn't do what they did to the PS3 store, where the PS3 store is just like, here's the best of in the first section. You want to find anything, you have to search for it. So hopefully the Vita store is a little bit better than that. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy. And I wonder if Sony, I know Sony's not going to release a Vita 2 or a PSP 2, but I'm wondering if someone in their research and development is just kind of like, let's kick around some ideas. Like,
well, we've seen all those like trademarks for like the split controller.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, in my mind, like, are they gonna like release a DualSense 5 that you can split and attach to your phone? You know, like similar to how like the Razer Kraken works now and stuff like, and you know, like try to. Same thing with Xbox. Like, there's been rumors about Xbox looking at the DualSense and taking inspiration from the DualSense and trying to redo their controller, which I think Xbox could get away with a you know, an Xbox controller 2.0 because there wasn't really that much of a change from the Xbox One controller to the Series controller, if at all. I think they added one button.
Yeah.
And then, so like there's a lot of things that the way that gaming is kind of changing, and depending on how the success of the Steam machine, the Steam Deck, you know, could, you know, kick off some other hybrid style things of. But I don't necessarily think that, you know, Xbox, like, we're not going to see Xbox bring out a handheld because they're just going to double down on playing on your tablet and playing on your phone.
Yeah, yeah.
And hopefully Sony can, you know, try to get something like that going, you know, and that's what they supposedly bought Gaikai years ago for, and now I feel like Gaikai's technology has been passed like 6 times.
Well, yeah, they used it to start PS Now, and then I feel like leadership, which happens at a lot of corporations, is they're like, leaders are like, oh, PS Now was the previous CEO's pet project. That's not my pet project. My pet project's something else. But now we're at the point where Game Pass has been so successful that now they have to look at PS Now and try a little bit harder to make PS Now more of a viable service. So I'm wondering what the sale count for the next Nintendo Switch is going to be, or the next sale count for the Steam Deck's going to be, before Sony starts kicking up their R&D to be like, how much would it cost us? What could we do in the mobile space to see if they can compete? Because these corporations aren't going to leave money on the table if they feel like there's money to be made. So it's either going to be Sony being like, all right, let's double down on PS Now, or let's go back to the handheld market because there's a demand for it. So I would love to know what like that imaginary number is on a board of this, like, if Steam Deck sells this much, we'll consider doing a PSP 2 or a PS Vita. Which I think they just named it PSP 2 because the Vita didn't last too long. But yeah, this could be game changing, or this could be the Steam machine and nothing happens.
Yeah, it could just, I mean, this thing could just come out and just be like, oh, this is trash. It doesn't run any of the new games well, and it just doesn't work.
Or it's just fine. Or, you know, like, it's not even, like, great. It's just like, it's fine. It's a new PC.
It could be, like, an entry level of, like, hey, I've had my Steam Deck for 2 or 3 years now. I really am enjoying the PC gaming. I'm mostly using it hooked up into my TV. I think I'm ready to drop, you know, $1,100 on a good PC, on a good gaming PC.
This just turns into an education thing for children, where it's just like, hey, your kid's first portable PC that runs Linux, let them learn how to code on this thing or something like that. There's possibilities.
I love it though. Like this, in terms of conversation pieces and things to talk about, like something like this is super cool. Like when this was announced, I was like, what is that? Because it just looks like a Game Gear on steroids.
It did look like a Game Gear. I'm wondering how hot this thing runs.
Yeah, that's true.
Especially with the NVMe drives, because those run hotter than the flash drive one. But yeah, that's it for news.
Nyko will come out with some fan that slaps to the back of it that makes it like this long cone.
Yeah,
like...
yeah. They will. Are they still around? They probably are.
They are. Okay. All right. So yet again, this segment has to be talked about, and that means that something got delayed. So what's been delayed? So first we'll do Riders Republic. Just got pushed back like a month, right?
Yeah.
Like 6 weeks.
September 2nd to October 28th.
It's almost 2 months. Like, okay, that's not a huge deal. And then I guess something at this point that I'm happy that got delayed. is Rainbow Six Extraction. Got delayed till 2022. Two reasons I'm happy. September, October, and November are packed full, like full.
Yeah.
So pushing this out, I think, is great. And two, I think I even said it on our E3 recap from the Ubisoft Forward. It just looked kind of bland.
Yeah. Not only that, it would be going against Back for Blood, which is Left 4 Dead, spiritual successor, and Extraction definitely is built on the back of like the Left 4 Dead 4-player co-op experience. So this just getting out of the way of that will be very helpful for this game long term, as opposed to if it was like, oh, let's compete against the 2 or 3 other co-op PvE games that are coming out.
Yeah, and trying to kick off a new season like in October, like
yeah,
release it, let some players mess with it for like 2 weeks, start season 1 on February 1st.
If anything, you could do do what Overwatch did to Battleborn. When Battleborn released, Overwatch released a beta. You could do Back 4 Blood releases and then just release a Rainbow Six Extraction beta, just to be competitive. But this is going to be beneficial to, like, I think every game.
Yeah, it looks super cool, but it also looked like there was a lot of downtime, and that's not really what I want in a PvE cooperative shooter.
For sure.
So. All right, what we're playing and watching. So for me, I think I'll start, and then I think we'll merge into 2 things that I feel like that we watched. So like, and then we'll kind of just transition to yours. One I know you watched, and one I think you assume I watched. So I downloaded Need for Speed Burnout Paradise Remastered.
Okay.
Messed around with that. Johnny as a boy has like times that are like 20 seconds faster than me, and I already caught myself in like running the same course like 2 or 3 times to see if I could shave like 10 seconds off. So I was playing that. No, on Xbox, on Game Pass.
Oh, okay. I should probably download that on Game Pass.
Let me just get the name of it for sure, just so I get it.
Was it Hot Pursuit?
Yes, because the cop one. Yeah.
Okay.
So Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered. Looked really good. Like, I guess I didn't realize that it was like remastered. I didn't realize how old the game was, but like the systems that are in place in terms of like the score chasing and the timing is cool. Figuring out what's a shortcut, what's not a shortcut, is fun. I forgot about like laying the spike strips, and it's just an arcade sim racer. It's just fun to it's just fun to play. Like it was just I was playing at like midnight on like Friday night because my sleep schedule's broken. It was just like a lot of fun. It's part of EA Play, so it's on Game Pass. I made the step forward. I never got a chance to play it, but I took the step forward and I downloaded Knockout City, so I still need to play that. Nice. So, but at least I got it downloaded. I was just kind of going through the Game Pass store really quick and downloading a couple games. I dabbled in Destiny again some more, just messing with some stuff, getting some materials, relatively easy strike to do the Grandmaster difficulty on, to get some stuff that I need for just later on. And that's definitely something that I was able to just sit down on the couch, and I'm still kind of like, as I was adjusting to my new sleep schedule, I was in a little bit of a fog, so it's just like mindless game playing. And then like still watching a little bit of Smallville. Unfortunately, like I'm falling asleep in between Smallvilles, and that's not Smallville's fault. That's my schedule's fault. So I think I'll have to go back and watch a couple more of those. Then we watched with Owen. He sat through the whole thing. We watched Space Jam: New Legacy.
Yep, I saw that.
Yeah, I didn't hate it.
It was fine. It was fine. It was fine. It was disappointing, but fine.
Yeah, I don't even think I was disappointed. There was a couple funny moments. I mean, LeBron can't act, so like that's nothing that seemed to really surprise me. My wife actually had me look up if that was his wife, and it's not. No. So yeah, so those are actors and actresses. And then I can't think of his name right now. I just heard it this morning, but the villain, the actor,
Don Cheadle.
I thought he was fantastic.
I thought he was good, but everything he was given script wise was really bad.
At the end, it got kind of wonky. Like at the end, like the second half of the game, like from a sports perspective, of like in the third quarter, both teams scored 1 point, and then the other basket was worth like 480
It's
points.
funny though,
like,
is because the third quarter was the most entertaining quarter.
Right, but there was no basketball.
Yeah.
So,
I recorded a whole 2.5 hour podcast about this for every movie ever. I'll put a link in the description.
Yeah, as a kid, like if you watch the original Space Jam, or if you've recently watched the original Space Jam, I think that the throwbacks and the connections to them, they were well done.
No, I thought they were terrible, actually.
Really?
They didn't know what they wanted to do. It's like sometimes they wanted to acknowledge Space Jam 1 existed, and other times they ignored it, and that frustrated the shit out of me. Again, I did a whole 2 hour
I guess maybe
podcast.
I might have to watch it again. I might have to watch the first one and then watch this one again. It's on HBO Max, so you can watch it, or you can go to the theater to watch it. So there was a couple like just funny moments, and that like
I hated
it was
the Ready Player One aspect of it. I hated that. Just like the server verse of just like, hey, here's all the stuff that you can stream on HBO Max. In this world.
Yeah, people were saying that like Warner Brothers threw a bunch of villains in there too, like as their properties, and maybe I just missed them. Somebody's like, oh, and the It Clown was there. I'm like, I didn't see him.
He was by the Monster or the Goon Squad's bench. It was like him.
Okay.
I think Clockwork Orange characters are in there.
Yeah,
There's a lot
I heard
of
that
weird
too.
things in that thing. I had a lot to say about this movie. I could go on and talk about this for all day. But yeah, I think it was fine. I just don't think it had any right to call itself a Space Jam movie. I think it would have been fine if it was called something else. But it just, I don't know. It was fine.
Yeah, somebody asked like, what did I think of LeBron scolding his kids for playing video games?
He was the villain.
I think that's more of like that's just kind of that facade that's out there, like parents like telling their kids they can't play games all the time, and but at the same time, like I haven't delved deep into LeBron's like past or anything like that as much as I know about like Jordan stuff. Like the only reason we heard about Jordan's like father and stuff like that is because unfortunately like he was murdered. Yeah. So there was a lot of conversation about how like Jordan talking about how he was as a father. Then we don't know a lot about LeBron's upbringing in terms of like
we just know his mom raised him and that stuff. We saw a little bit of that in the movie, but
the perception of like, oh, you just have to work, like you have to, like I don't think that like I think that's just tying to the parent that'd be watching the show with their kids, like the parent that would be older than me and maybe the same age as some of our viewers on Twitch right now. But I don't think that's the reality anymore. Like, and I feel like that people that are writing scripts or directing these movies feel like that is the reality, and it's not.
I just think it's like a wild concept of just like the original Space Jam. Again, I fucking spent way too much time thinking about Space Jam the last couple of days. But it's just like in original Space Jam, it was like Michael Jordan rediscovering his love for basketball. And in Space Jam: A New Legacy, it's
which was a story that happened in real life.
Yes, and then
actually happened to Michael Jordan. What happened in New Legacy did not happen to LeBron James.
Yeah, and in this, they kind of play up LeBron's villain persona, so then they can give him character growth as he sheds that villain persona, basically, if that makes sense. Like LeBron in this one is playing into the character people think he really is in life, and then sheds that like facade as he goes on through the movie, which is an interesting and wild concept if you think about it, to be like, hey, your star of the movie is going to be kind of unlikable for the first like 20 minutes until he finally gets past that. But yeah, talking way too much about like a deeper meaning in Space Jam: A New Legacy, but yeah, I think it was fine. I also saw Black Widow, which I thought was really good. I wish it came out a couple years ago when it would fit in the timeline.
That's what everybody was saying. Like it should have came out before Infinity War, right?
It should have. But it didn't. But it was still a fun movie. And
again, not to spoil anything, but the post-credit scene that I talked about last week, did you get that? Like that's kind of weird.
No, I mean.
Okay. Do you understand what I was saying though?
Yeah, it timeline wise, it doesn't really make sense. It's just like, was she visiting in the current day, or was she visiting previously, and then it like messes up the timeline, but not in a Loki timeline way, as in just like based on what we know of this movie.
Yeah,
like it just seemed kind of weird.
I'm almost done with Loki. Again, I was trying to stay up Friday and watch Loki with Angela, and I passed out on the couch at the end of like halfway through the last episode. Again, not Loki's fault. My broken sleep schedule's fault. Seeing a little bit that I've seen on the timeline, apparently they introduced a character that's like way over my head.
So, yeah, they basically introduced something that will forever change the universe. But we'll just say that. But
right.
I don't
Which,
feel like
again,
that's
again, I have my own issues with doing that amongst assuming that your crowd. And my wife's like, well, Dave, if they love Marvel, they have Disney Plus anyways. That's what she tells me. Like,
no, and that's I think that's
and she's
Disney's
not wrong,
logic.
but I think it's just kind of one of the things of like, if I'm just taking my dad to the movies with me or something, then he's not going to really understand what's going on. And if I have to sit there at the end of a movie and have a 20 or 30 minute conversation with him about a timeline thing, he's going to be like, whatever, I checked out. Like,
Yeah, it definitely makes it harder to onboard new fans. But Disney at this point is just like, they want that problem. They want your dad to be like, you know what? I'm going to watch all these movies and subscribe to Disney.
I agree. I just, it's a new world. Like you wouldn't, like it was the same thing that, I still remember like, the disclaimer at the beginning of one of the shows for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. warning, if you have not seen Thor, like
now it's just like we make $1 billion every movie you've seen the previous movie.
But it was just fun. It was just so funny where they're like, do not watch this show if you have any interest in interest in seeing Thor or something. Like I don't even remember if it was Thor, but a movie that came out within this month affects the outcomes of some things that are happening in this television show. And people were pissed that it was there like that. They were upset. Like then that was a long time ago though. Was that like 5 years ago, 6 years ago now or something?
Yeah, but like 2014 probably.
Yeah. So, all right. Do you play anything else or?
No, just a little Pokemon Snap. And then that was pretty much it. It's just been since I still kind of work retail. It's one of those things where I have this week off.
Kind of work retail,
which means when you have vacation time, they punish you before your vacation time, and I'm very much in that, like, I'm being punished for asking for my time off. So I worked way too much last week, so didn't really have time for games. I just watched Black Widow, watched Space Jam: New Legacy, and then finished season 1 of Mythic Quest and watched like 2 or 3 episodes into season 2.
Would you have been disappointed if you went to the theaters in normal circumstances for Black Widow?
No, I think it would have been fine. I think it would have been fine. I also prefer to just watch it at home anyways. This is the thing I've been asking for forever.
Yeah.
So I was fine. Like, again, Black Widow didn't disappoint
You definitely
me.
seem like you and your significant other definitely feel like, you know what, I'm totally content with whatever food I want that's in my kitchen, laying on my couch, covering up with a blanket and some big pillows, and just doing what I want. I got to go to the bathroom. Pause.
Yeah, go to the corner store and buy a $2 box of popcorn that has 3 packs in it, as opposed to spending $18 for one.
Yep.
So, yeah.
What they say, rewind that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, oh, you don't know who that is? Pause. Okay, let me mansplain what this character means and why this is important. So, yeah.
Standing up in the theater. Okay, guys, pause. I got to explain something to my girlfriend. Pause.
Yeah. I prefer that.
All right. So questions and comments using hashtag AskDigitalDays. You can send them through through Facebook, through Discord, any of those. Somebody put one actually in the chat. Let me go back up here and find it. So we'll start with Farmer John's real quick, so I think we can answer this quickly. So PS5 still sold out across the board. How long do you think that this will continue? Do you think they are selling more of next gen and it's because of the shortages? I don't think that I think a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago, I felt like that you were going to see boxes on shelves this holiday. I don't think that's going to be the case now.
No.
And they are selling more. They're outpacing the PS4 right now. PS5 is outpacing PS4. So at this point in time, I don't feel like Sony or the retailers are having any pressure to have this in the stores. Again, I think if you diligently want a PS5, I think you can get it. You have to be diligent.
Well, we've been recording it. PS5 was up on Sony Direct as we were recording it. This Sony Direct started to drop, and then yesterday there was like Best Buy and another thing. So yeah, you can still get them. It's getting easier. Like, I'm seeing less and less people disappointed every time there is a drop at a retailer. I still think we might see something during Black Friday at some retailers, depending on how bad like the variants for COVID get. So I think we're getting more and more to where it's just like whatever happens, sadly. So I see retailers still pushing it this holiday.
I don't necessarily think it's a panic to buy it. I just think that there's some like solid stuff you can play. I know a lot of people were waiting to play Miles Morales until they got PS5. Returnal, whether if you like that style of game, it's a fantastic game for you. Ratchet and Clank, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut. I think the library is starting to come up. And then the next gen upgrades, Destiny having a better upgrade. Some of these other games, just running better on PS5 is making it, more tangible, 6-7 months post launch to own a next gen console, whether it's an Xbox Series or a PlayStation 5. PlayStation 5 is obviously winning the console arm race because the other team's just not playing that arms race with them. But I don't think it's like, I don't think that people are panic buying them. I just think that they're like, they know that the kids or teenagers, young adults have had 6-7 months of saving up to be able to get them, and now they want it. So
no, agreed.
Yeah. So next question from Stefan: which game do you think you didn't give a fair chance to back in the day and want to revisit it now? The easiest thing for me to say, it's not that I didn't give it a fair chance to. I just got distracted away from it and haven't finished it and want to finish it. It's Horizon, and it's not that I didn't give it a fair chance. It's just that it didn't initially grab me right away, or I got distracted by something probably going on in Destiny. So.
Yeah, for me, so I'm currently in the process of trying to rebuild my PS3 collection. I was pretty poor, so I'd have to buy a game and then trade it in as soon as the value was still pretty high, and then get another game. So I traded in a lot of games that I bought, and then I was like, I don't really have time for this, so I traded it in for something bigger. So I'm trying to get Asura's Wrath and 3D Dot Game Heroes on the PS3, but because of that PSN potential closure, the prices for PS3 games has skyrocketed. They've kind of gone down a little bit since Sony said they're not doing that anymore. So I'm trying to track down 3D Dot Game Heroes and Asura's Wrath, which I think I could buy Asura's Wrath digitally on Xbox, but 3D Dot Game Heroes I need to get a physical copy for. So
are garage sales a thing in Chicago at all?
They are, but so many of these people now, they know
actually know what they have, and with eBay existing, they just snap a picture of something and Google it, and then so it's much easier to find the information. So you're not going to find grandma with a table of PS3 games at her house.
All these
that.
Bougie people that live in my neighborhoods,
they
do garage sales, and they try and sell stuff for $5 off MSRP, and it's
it's an antique shop.
Yeah, and it's just what are you doing? Everything here should be $1 or $5 if it's good. That's how garage sales I always grew up with.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wish, and then the used game stores are just as bad because they definitely know the value of their stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I haven't been to a flea market since COVID. I kind of want to go to one.
Yeah.
Just because you can usually get someone who's just I stole all this stuff. It's $5 each thing.
Yeah.
So I want to do that to try and track down some of these games, but I doubt I'm going to find 3D Dot Game Heroes at a flea market because it's such a very specific game. But currently trying to track down those two games, though I will probably get Asura's Wrath digitally just to play that again, because my friends hyped it up saying it was one of the best games, and I remember trying it and be like, oh, it's just quick time events, because I didn't appreciate
storytelling in games at that time.
Yeah, I just wasn't. I didn't appreciate QuickTime event games at that time. But yeah, that's what I would like to look at.
All right, and he's in chat and he sent us a question as well at Currymaster. What are your thoughts on the new G.I. Joe Origins movie? Will we ever get a good G.I. Joe game? Will we ever get a good G.I. Joe game? No, I don't think so, because I just feel like that they would just rush it and they wouldn't give a studio the correct time it needs to do it right. And from a movie standpoint, I believe you're talking about Snake Eyes, and Snake Eyes looks super interesting to me. So.
Yeah, I think this would be a great idea for G.I. Joes to kind of build them into a cinematic universe by doing individual characters as movies. As for a game, I think the best you can hope for is they just add G.I. Joe characters to Fortnite. I think that's the best you're going to be able to get, is just, here's 10 G.I. Joe people in Fortnite. But I think it's a really good idea for the movies to build up the characters individually, and there's so many characters you can work with to build that out.
And unfortunately, what I think happened with Avengers and Square Enix is going to scare off companies from trying to do something, because we heard about this Avengers project for a long time, and that kind of like hit with a thud. And maybe like Guardians of the Galaxy will save it.
Yeah, but G.I. Joe's isn't that big of a franchise for anyone to take that risk.
And also, it's not that big of a franchise for anybody under the age of like 25.
Yeah. What I wouldn't mind though is if they want to give it a go, kind of take the Army Men or the Hot Wheels approach and just let you play a G.I. Joe's game where they're literally toys. Like they're the 6-inch toys that I grew up with, or the 3-inch toys, not the Ken dolls that they grew up in the 80s with, but like the 3-inch dolls. That would probably be an interesting way to take the G.I. Joe franchise, but I don't see them doing like a AAA G.I. Joe's game, unless it's in Fortnite.
Yeah, it'd be super. Like, I feel like the Ninja Turtles are kind of getting to that point too. We're seeing them like mixed into Smite and mixed into Brawlhalla, and they're kind of just sprinkling them everywhere. And like you and I have been fiending for like a new and maybe Shredder's Revenge will kind of like jumpstep this. But I've been saying it for years that I would love to see Rocksteady make essentially Batman Arkham Knight with Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Like
the dark comic book Ninja Turtles would be great.
Like in that I want that combat. I want that, like hell at this point in time, take Gotham as the map and just call it New York or whatever, and like let them rip you apart. But if you can sit there 4-player and fight them like you fight Batman with the combos and stuff like that, like just please, like
yeah.
So,
though, speaking of 80s properties, and Currymaster in chat says there's so many 80 properties, stop trying to make He-Man a thing, please. Like, He-Man was trash. It's trash now. Please stop trying to make He-Man a thing. I understand people have nostalgia
if you're going to go with that animation style at this point in time, let's just do something cool with Thundercats.
Yeah, there's better things you can do. Just forget He-Man existed. Just move on.
All right, Spotlight. So, just like Michael mentioned, his every movie ever.
Yeah.
I think every ever movie sounds better, but no, I'm just playing. Every movie ever. Specifically, in the entire episode is just around Space Jam.
Yeah, 2.5 hours of Space Jam. It's mostly because we're two kids from the 90s. Me and my co-host Chad, and grew up in Chicago. We talk about like our like love for the first Space Jam, and then we talk about a new legacy. But it's 2.5 hours, so everymovieever.zone is the website you can get to, and you can subscribe.
We'll link it. We'll link it in the show notes if you want to hear Michael talk more about Space Jam. Maybe that's something I'll listen to in my car ride. I am going on vacation next week. About 3 hours from home, 3.5 hours from home. I tentatively right now, I'll say that I will not be here next week. So we are working on a co-host, and it's not 100% secured. It's a familiar voice, so we're working through that. If push comes to shove and something doesn't work, maybe you guys will get like a Patreon episode. But I am taking some shorter time off than I anticipated, but I am taking some time off of work to spend some time with my family before my daughter goes back to college, and my son won't be there, but he might be there one day. I don't think he will be at all before he gets ready to go back to college, because they're going back in like 2 weeks. Not going to the UP, but going to farther north than where I live. So UP is, if I'm going to drive to the UP, I'm just going to drive to Florida. Yeah. And then, so that's what's going on for next week. So, I mean, it might be 2 weeks before you hear from me. So I'll definitely have some stuff to talk about. But again, I always thank you guys for the support and the ability to know that I can, take some time off and not worry about it. So that's always, super helpful. And, obviously thanks to Michael and anybody else that helps to just keep the episode train rolling. So you can follow us for more updates.
Episodes. Can you believe that, guys? Couldn't make it 100 episodes.
Oh my gosh! I did record when I was in Virginia. I took my microphone with. Don't make me take the MacBook and my Yeti with me, okay?
It's gonna be a headache for me, and I have to rearrange things. No, it's fine.
So you can follow us on the social networks, mostly on Twitter at Digital Days Pod, where you'll see whatever when the episode's going to be. If it's going to be live streamed, there's a chance that it might not be live streamed, but we'll see. We'll update you guys. You can follow Michael's account at the first MJC 1ST. You can follow myself at Good Dave Hunt. Again, links to the show notes are in the Facebook group. In the show notes are links to the Facebook group, Discord server, patreon.com/digitaldaysgaming, $1 tip jar, $2 Discord private channel access, $5 24-hour early access to the episode. to the weekly episodes, and $7 gets you monthly bonus episode. You can go back as soon as you become a $7 Patreon subscriber. You can go back and listen to like the last 12 or 13 monthly episodes that we have done for bonus content. There's some interesting stuff in there. Like I said, that you may see one of those over the summer get used. If something happens, Michael gets called into work. We have our break glass in case of emergency depth of episodes go in there. So, but other than that, I think that's it. You have anything else?
No, I'm fine. I'm good. I have a cold.
I gave Michael my cough through the microphone. It took about 4 episodes for it to transition through.
I went the whole episode without coughing, and it's like my body's just like, all right, we're done. We're gonna start coughing. No, that's it. Just
I think I only coughed once, and I muted it this time. So
yeah, I muted just right now, but yeah, it's just starting to hit me. It's good because I might not go to work tomorrow because I'm sick, and there's video evidence of me coughing now. But
maybe that'll be the YouTube thumbnail of you like leaning over.
Yeah, hopefully. Just don't be a dick. I'll see you guys next week.
Yep. Talk to y'all soon. Keep moving forward.